be incarcerated. Remember that under human trafficking, where someone has been trafficked from one place to another, they are denied their liberty to move from one place to another. So they are usually forced to do activities that are against their own will. And therefore, their right to liberty is guaranteed under the Universal Declaration of Human Rights and Article 3 and 4 of the same. Furthermore, we see that they have the right to non-discrimination. The right to non-discrimination is where someone or persons are not discriminated in any way by age, race, or sex. And we see that under Article 2 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we see that all individuals, including survivors, are accorded these rights. We also see that survivors have a right to access justice and legal remedies. And we see that under Article 6 of the Palmer Protocol and Article 8 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, survivors are given a chance to access justice, whereby they can be able to go and report their traffickers, and then they are given various remedies sought from courts of law or tribunals or any lawful authority that can help them access justice. We also see that survivors have a right to assistance or protection, whereby someone ought to be assisted where they are vulnerable. And we see that under Article 6, 3, A, B, C, and D of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, we see that this right is guaranteed therein. And we see that people are able to be assisted in various ways. How? By accessing healthcare, shelter, rehabilitating them, giving them medical care. So all this can be accorded to them because they have a right under the Palmer Protocol, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, to be given such assistance. Furthermore, we see that they have the right to privacy and confidentiality, and whereby usually when someone is identified as a victim and they are to be accorded any help, the information shared with the authorities have to be treated with a lot of confidentiality, whereby such information ought not to be shared to any other person that is privy to such information. So when they are trying to narrate their traumas to these authorities, they ought not to publish them or to give them out to the public to access such sensitive information that sometimes is they would find shaming to them. So we see that under Article 6.1 of the Palmer Protocol, it guarantees this right. We see that they also have a right to recovery and reintegration, and under Article 6.3c of the Palmer Protocol, and also Guideline 6 of the OECD recommendations and principles, we see that this right is guaranteed where someone who is a survivor can be given an opportunity to recover from the traumas. How? By usually giving them counseling services, giving them health care, and each and everything that would help them recover from the situation of trauma that they were in. Furthermore, they also have a right not to be criminalized or detained for the actions or the wrongs they have done during the era of trafficking. Remember that when someone is trafficked and forced to work in a foreign country or in any other place by their traffickers, they're usually working under the directions of their traffickers. And usually they do actions that break the law. For example, prostitution in some countries is not allowed. Others participate in criminal activities that would endanger their lives and will usually yield criminal charges against them. So when a survivor is out of the hands of the trafficker, they ought not to be criminalized for the actions that they did during that time. We also see that survivors have a right of residency, that they are entitled to temporary residence within a country where they have been trafficked. Usually in several countries, as we shall see later on in this discussion, we see that several countries like Uganda, they usually give survivors of trafficking an opportunity to stay in a country voluntarily. And if at all they want to go back to their countries of origin, they do it voluntarily without forcing anyone to leave the country. We also see that they have a right to participation, whereby their views have to be listened to in terms of seeking legal redress. When someone says, I want my information to be kept confidential, that has to be respected. Second, if at all they have a way how the legal proceedings they would want them to go, their views are usually considered. And then we also have some rights that are specifically accorded to children. For example, being protected from exploitation, labor exploitation. There are countries like Uganda where you are not allowed to employ children that are below 16 years of age. And there are those that allow to employ children. And where you force someone who's a minor to participate in any action that is would be deemed as child labor, that is prohibited. And we see that the UN, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Children prohibits that. And also it prohibits the sale of children on the local markets or anywhere. Now, there's also a right to education. Survivors worldwide are accorded the right to access education. And when they are able to access this education, they are able to participate in various activities that would promote their career in the long run. Furthermore, survivors have a right to be identified as victims, and usually states are given the obligation to identify these victims to be protected. And usually we see that under Article 10 of the Convention of Europe and Guideline number 2, we see that survivors have a right to be identified so that they are given protection in the countries where they are being identified as victims of human trafficking. Now, as we proceed, we need to understand when do we use the term victim and when do we use the term survivor. So the victim versus the survivor terminology. Usually, a victim refers to a person who has suffered human injury, a person who has suffered harm or injury, or whether physical, psychological, due to the acts that are harsh towards them. And also, on the other side, a survivor is a person who usually signifies persistence, endurance, and has overcome the adversities of human trafficking. And usually, survivors are taken to be people who have survived, are usually taken to be people who have survived the trauma of human trafficking. So the notion victim or survivor depends on the perspective from which you view someone. If you are to view someone as a victim, it merely now emphasizes on the experience of harm, whereas on the survivor terminology now focuses on the process of healing and resilience. So survivor terminology is usually someone is viewed from a position of strength, whereas for a victim, someone is viewed from a perspective of vulnerability. So now that is the difference between victim and survivor terminology. Now moving forward, we shall now go to the international legal framework, and Anka will be coming in to take us through the international legal framework that protects survivors. Thank you.
Thank you, Arthur.